If you're deep in labor and I hand you a pen and some paper and I say, draw your contractions for me, you'll most likely draw something that looks a little bit like this. But what does this mean? What does this feel like? And what happens before we get to that contraction pattern, those rolling hills contraction pattern? We're going to break that down in this video. And I want to make sure that you know when contraction starts, that they are contractions, and that you're not confusing them with Braxton Hicks or even gas pain. In labor, what we're feeling is our uterus contracting. So the uterus is a muscle and where the baby lives inside, and the point of the contractions is to open up the exit of the uterus. So the muscle contracts, and just like our bicep contracts or other muscles in our body contract, and that contraction is what we're feeling. It's the intensity, it's the pain that we're feeling in labor. And it is the uterus trying to open up the cervix, open up the exit so that the baby can come down and out, pushing the baby through the pelvis, down and out. That is the work of labor. So the fact that it's a muscle, I think, is good to know when you're thinking about how it feels. The difference, though, between the uterine muscle and a muscle like our bicep or maybe even our butt muscle is that we don't have control over that muscle. So the uterus is contracting without our control. We can't just make our uterus contract. And that is what feels a little bit different in labor, is because the muscle is contracting without our ability to control it. And something that is sort of similar to this, that in my mind, it's a nice comparison, and that is if we have a leg cramp or a Charlie horse, a calf cramp. So if you've ever experienced this, they can be quite intense, and they are something that often we are not in control of. So the muscle, the calf, cramps up without our control. If you've experienced this, you know that often it just kind of, you might feel it coming on like a little bit of a twinge and think, oh no, here comes my calf cramping, and then it seizes up, that muscle contracts, and then we have to wait a little bit of time until that muscle relaxes. So that's similar to the uterus in a way. Imagine if that calf cramp actually was a lot slower, where we could feel it coming and it slowly built until it was all the way tense and contracted. And then as soon as it was all the way contracted, it started releasing, and we could feel it release, kind of like going down a hill. That is a lot like a uterine contraction, a contraction of labor. We can feel it build, we can feel it start, it peaks up, and then it goes back down. And it's not always that bell-shaped contraction where it's equal amount going up and equal amount going down. A lot of people in labor experience kind of a quicker build and then a longer tail of a taper. So that's kind of how that pattern feels. And then where we feel it is also very unique to labor. That Braxton Hicks, we often feel kind of all over our belly, but the uterine contractions are usually felt below the belly button, and they're often felt similar to period cramps, menstrual cramps. If you've never experienced period cramps, then it might be a little more difficult for you to get the idea of what labor feels like. But if you have before, you'll know that they're down low. So if someone says, I'm feeling them below my belly button, then I know that's likely a real labor contraction. Now, before they have these nice hills, it's very common that we feel this period type cramping. And what that looks like, if I gave you a pen and a paper and I said, draw those early labor contractions, they might kind of look like this. And what that is they don't really have a clear start. They don't really have a clear end. And then they don't really have a peak. They just kind of hang out. They just kind of stay at the same intensity. And that's very common in the early phase of labor, or when our body is getting ready for labor, or maybe even pre-labor, before labor even gets started. We might feel that kind of period type menstrual cramping, but we can't necessarily draw those peaks and those rolling hills. That is very common. Let's talk a little bit about intensity of contractions. So we know that they are going to have a start, a peak, and a stop, and we know they're going to be kind of feeling like period cramps and menstrual cramps, but what do they really feel like? How intense are they? I think the best way to think of that is they usually build. Not everyone has the same start. Some people have a long period, especially in early labor, where their contractions are at a point that the intensity is so low that they can, usually ignore them, or they can go about their daily life. They can sleep through them. They can talk through them. That is a period that a lot of people go through in their labor. Some people skip over all of that, and when contraction starts, they get to a place where they're like, don't talk to me, I need to focus and breathe through these contractions. So usually people hit that phase of labor where it's too serious that they can't really sleep or ignore them anymore, and they have to start using some coping strategies to get through them. Then the intensity usually builds to a part where people are using a lot of coping strategies to get through labor. And sometime in that period, some people choose other pain management techniques like epidurals, nitrous oxide, and methods like that, getting in the tub, getting into the shower. So generally, labor goes through a process of building an intensity of contractions. Now, with an induced labor, you might not see that same kind of pattern. You might kind of skip over that beginning intensity where, you have contractions that you can kind of ignore, and it can jump straight to contractions that you have to pay attention to. So it might be a little bit different, but that same low period type peaking contractions are the same style, both whether you're induced or you're not induced. Most people do feel contractions below the belly button, that menstrual type cramp, but sometimes people feel contractions in their upper thighs. That's not super common, but it can happen. There's also kind of a rare case that people can feel the contraction mostly like in their cervix, kind of like a lightning crotch sensation. So not common, but I do want you to be aware that there are some variations of that normal feeling that you might experience. In addition to wondering what contractions feel like, a lot of people wonder, what does it feel like when the baby drops? How do we know when the baby's head is engaged in the pelvis? And I put together a great video that lays that out, and I'm going to put a link right here. If you found this video helpful, please consider subscribing to the channel for more information like this, giving the video a like, and maybe sharing it with a friend. And until next time, have a great day.